means I get to say what I want my life to be. I fight for gay marriage, not that I ever wanted to get married, but if you have the right to it, heterosexual has the right, then I should have the right to it. Doesn't mean I have to do it. When straight people get married now or have children, I go, oh, that's okay.
From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Musto.
So, Michael, the wonderful play Torch Song is being revived off-Broadway, and we are so thrilled to have with us its beloved author, Harvey Fierstein, its new star, Michael Urie, recreating a role that was first played by Harvey Fierstein, but making it his own, and the director of this new production at Second Stage, Moises Kaufman.
Congratulations, gentlemen. Great job.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was Torch Song Trilogy. It's now Torch Song.
Yes,
because it's
still
scaled down.
Still a trilogy.
Are you going to do a 20-minute version called Torch?
Yeah. No, I did.
And then a 1-minute version called Tuh?
Yeah. He went for my joke. He went for my joke. Oh. You know, this is how Conan O'Brien got off the air.
He is?
Goes for the joke.
I didn't even get the memo. Harvey, okay, this play deals with adoption, bullying, the closet, drag. Nothing relevant to today, right?
Back rooms.
I was and anonymous sex, exactly. I was amazed in seeing it, how relevant it still is to today. It doesn't even matter when it's set. All of those issues come to play in the modern LGBT movement.
Yeah, the thing that I feel in the audience and the thing that I watch is this ownership of it. The audience almost feels like they own it. I kind of wondered if it was going to feel old. You know, I mean, I'm old. Why shouldn't it feel? But it's so alive. The audience is so alive with it. It means so much. I mean, to hear the audience cry more than they cried like at the original, it's.
And the original, you did the first of the trilogy in 79 at La Mama?
Yeah. 78.
Yeah, 78.
78. Well, 78.
Was the international
now
star.
There it is.
Wow. And you made
Which
that
I
post.
hear was an anonymous sex bar in the village.
Yes, it's now
it's now Grindr, basically.
Restaurant. No, it was a
Oh, it's well. Don't order
I
the
can't
cream.
eat there.
Don't order the cream sauce.
I've gone in there. And I've sat down and gone. My children.
That's the first of the trilogy,
Right.
and then you have.
Because Eric Conklin, the director of that, you know, I had to fight Ellen Stewart, La Mama, to give me the space, you know, because she didn't want me in drag anymore. It's a whole long story. But so when she finally said yes to putting on International Stud, he said, "Tell her it's a trilogy." And I said, "What are we going to do?" He said, "Tell her it's a trilogy. That way we don't have to fight for a space next year." Oh, so in the archives of the La Mama basement, the Ozzy Rodriguez,
The dazzling spot, the La Mama
he has the letter where I write, "Mama, by the way, it's a trilogy," and then I was stuck writing the other two, and that's how that's.
Now, Moises, when did you first become aware of this play?
I think it was 1987. I saw the tour in San Francisco, and it was a revelatory moment for me as well. You know, I was early 20s. I had come from Venezuela. Harvey insists that I'm Argentinian, even though I keep saying that I'm Venezuelan. And I had come from an Orthodox Jewish home in a very, Catholic and machista country. And even though I felt that I was gay, I had no role models. I didn't know, that it was even possible. And so seeing this play and seeing all those different kinds of gay people up on stage opened the door, and all of a sudden, part of my life became possible.
He was in San Francisco and didn't know it was possible to be gay. Obviously, he stayed in a room with no windows.
Obviously, he was from Venezuela.
Now, what about you, Michael Urie? When did you first become aware of this play?
I read it in high school in a corner in the office of the drama department. I found it in the drama library and read it and devoured it, sitting by myself in a corner, and didn't know so much about the world until this play. And there were several plays at that, in high school that I, because I was in drama, I had this access to. And and that was one of them, and it was eye-opening. And then we got to perform that. I mean, I didn't do anything from Torch Song, but I remember seeing scenes from it.
Were you out as a homosexual in high school?
No,
No.
no, but you know, I got the play. I understood the play, and I recognized myself in the play. It was an early eye-opening moment for me, and I never dreamed I would ever be in it. I never dreamed that I would ever play, especially that role. At that time, I probably thought maybe I could play Ed.
Yes, yes. I could
That
see
made
you
more
seeing
sense.
that, but you certainly get this role and make it your own, as I've previously said.
Tell him that you got 2 calls about it.
Well, yeah, so the first call was from, well, first I met Moises backstage at The Heiress, which he directed with Jessica Chastain, my school chum from Juilliard. And we met backstage, and I was a great admirer of his from Laramie and from I Own My Own Life, and The Heiress was wonderful. And we became Facebook friends, and he reached out to me and said, I want to work together. I said, great, what can we do? And he said, what about Torch Song Trilogy? And I was like, okay. I'd never, and that was the first time I'd ever thought maybe I could really be in this. And so we went back and forth. I read it again. We talked a little bit about it.
And did he say to do Arnold?
Yes,
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 yeah.
yes.
I thought of him as the mother. Moises had a different vision. He said, no, Michael Musto for the mother.
I don't think I'd be good for the mother.
And
Anyway,
then-
this play
Wait,
really
you gotta
combines.
hear. But you got.
Oh, okay, then what happened?
well, then a few months.
Then what happened?
You know, a few weeks or months go by, and Richie Jackson, Harvey's manager, former assistant, former agent, now producer, reached out and he said, "What do you think about Torch Song?" And it was completely separate, independently of each other. These two men who
It
I
was
admired
synchronicity.
greatly. Yeah.
Well, it's
And-
one of those things that they just happen sometimes.
Yeah, so I said, you got to talk to Moises Kaufman because he had the same idea. And so they talked, and I guess the 3 of them met, and then they had me in to read the whole play, and that was that. And it was really these ideas, the ideas of 2 guys completely independently that came together, and the synergy of it ended up getting me the job. And it's like the kind of a thing that if I'd had to go in an audition and prepare a few scenes, I wouldn't have gotten it. I would have failed.
The play really combines something that is hilarious and heart-tugging at the same time. I mean, people are laughing and crying in the span of the 2.5 hours. What did you cut along the way? I noticed one of the drag names, which is so brilliant. You
What is
used to have
drag?
Marcia Dimes,
Marcia Dimes.
but you
I heard a great
kept
one.
Birth of a Nation.
I heard a great one on Will and Grace the other night.
Eileen Sideways,
No,
Dora Jar.
Judaism.
That's a good
I
one.
thought that was a good one. Yeah, no,
But was it cut for the ADD generation or
no.
just?
You know, the thing is that for many years, people have requested the rights to do the first play and the third play, or the second play and the third, or the first and the second, and I would say like, well, we just can't do. And I said, you know, I wrote these plays for La Mama where you could do them just with chairs, you know, how much simpler. And I said, I'm going to have to cut them down to get it. That's, you know, and I know the material so well. And I thought, let me try, you know, so that's what I did. It was sort of an experiment. I gave the play to Brian Kerwin, who played Ed on the road, and you saw him in San Francisco, and I also did the movie with him. I gave it to a bunch of people who had done the play and said, here, you read it. I gave it to the producers, to Lawrence Lane to read, and for the most part, they didn't know it was cut. They couldn't actually. Well, I think something from the. I think so, and as long as you missed nothing, it was fine.
Is it true that Ethel Merman saw the original Torch Song trilogy?
Yes, it is true. That was so beautiful.
I'm gonna get $1 for that.
I owe $1.
What did she say?
So she comes back. So first of all, she calls for tickets, right? I got a couple of tickets to that trigonometry thing. So she comes to see the show, and she's coming down to my dressing room, and I'm like, fix up my robe, and I'm like, oh my God, and I meet her out in the hallway. I'm that excited. I don't even wait till she gets to my dressing room. So, Miss Merman, you know, I worship you. Miss Merman, yeah, I'm just so thrilled to meet you. For you, and you came. So, what'd you think, Miss Merman? And she said, and I quote, I thought it was a piece of shit. The rest of the audience laughed and cried, so what the do I know?
Did you put that in the
Bleep
ads?
that out.
It's better than Frank
Is
Ridge.
that fabulous?
She
Is that
tweeted
fabulous?
it later.
She tweeted it. No, well, you know, you talk about that. There was there were the two women. We used to like to listen to people in front of the theater, and these two women walking by, and they looked at me and went, "If I knew Helen Hayes was in it, I would have seen it last year."
Now,
Neil Simon's in this? No. Michael, you were great, and Mercedes Rule is also fantastic. In the original production, which I'll never forget because it spun my little gay head around, that somebody on Broadway was dealing with these issues of wanting acceptance as a gay man. It was extraordinary.
which had not been dealt with.
But Estelle Getty,
back in the day.
Estelle Getty was brilliant as mom, and she didn't win any awards.
I don't know why she. I mean, she did win awards on the road. You know, when she went out every town we went to, she won Best Actress. But I don't know why. I don't know why she was not nominated for awards. I mean, you know, Matthew and I won awards for it, but
Matthew Broderick, yeah.
Matthew Broderick, but she didn't, and she was bitter. when she won the Emmy Award, she called me up and said, "I would have rather had the Tony." I said, "But honey, it's so much bigger."
E. Arthur would have rather she had the Tony instead of the Emmy too. I read Rue McClanahan's book.
He's another whole story. But you listen, Estelle and I had this relationship from La Mama. Estelle used to come see all my plays, and she'd always say, "Put a mother in your next one. Put a mother in your next one." And the idea of this woman who came up to my nipples, you know, playing my mother, you know, this little, and so I wrote the mother, you know, and she showed up, and she showed up in her own clothes. That was her wig, that was her clothes.
But the mother is tough and kind of awful.
Well, the way she keeps saying,
I love you,
why don't you open your life to me? But whenever he does, she shoots him down.
Well, that's a mother relationship. But you know, I said to Mercedes, I said, you know, for all the years that Torture has existed, women come up to me, 80-year-old women, they never say, "That's me and my son." They always say, "That's me and my mother." You know, I mean, that mother is so true to.
And yet she does give that beautiful piece of advice. I mean, you think she could be a good mother.
Let me
She
just
tried
talk
harder.
about Mercedes Rule because she is, she's a force of nature, right?
She's a force of nature, and she unlike Estelle Getty, she's completely transforms herself into this other person.
What was it like working with her to
Yeah.
get her there?
She's a stage animal. Every pore of her body,
Argentinian.
understands what it's like to be on stage. The moment she sets foot on the stage, the transformation is there. She understands this character. Every thought that goes through her head is the character. It's astonishing.
You think it's so impossible? Believe me, one day you might meet a nice girl. Just.
Michael, were you conscious of the fact that it's so etched in so many people's minds who didn't even see maybe the Broadway play, but they saw the movie, and you had to reinterpret it?
And even if they didn't see the movie or the Broadway play, they have an idea of Harvey. People have this idea of him that they have cultivated from his work in movies, his writing, and his personality, and Hairspray, and all these things that have come since Torch Song. So I often feel like people don't wonder how I'll play Arnold. They wonder how I'll play Harvey. Which is a totally different thing, because actually Arnold is not Harvey. I mean, Arnold, of course, there's Arnold's in there, but Arnold's also in me, and so I can find Arnold within me, and it doesn't have anything to do with Harvey, except for
But there were a
Harvey
few
created
moments
it.
where I honestly thought you were channeling Harvey.
Really?
Yeah.
And yet you were doing no kind of imitation.
No, not
Harvey.
intentionally.
People have to remember that I did write all of those characters. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I may have played Arnold, but I did write every one of them.
But I want to go back. I want to go back to when you were in La Mama doing the International Stud by yourself on the stage, and who you were that you came to write that play, that that then groundbreaking play.
Well, Crystal Field called me for a one-act for a festival she was doing in 1975, 76 for the bicentennial, and I wrote the backroom scene for that, and I performed that all by itself, and it was the hit of the festival.
Imagine.
And so
You're in an orgy, in a back room,
It's
a gay bar back room.
Yeah, no, an orgy is it's
same
like
to me.
arranged. This is by chance.
Well,
This was
By
before
chance.
Grindr, okay?
This is and this is
If Grindr was a room.
It was a room where you were face to face.
Or a truck.
Or back to back.
or a truck.
How did you stage that incredible scene where you are in the back room of the stud and having sex and speaking at the same time?
It was the conversations were extremely funny. The kinds of things you end up talking about when you're staging a scene like that are they're pretty funny. And we would talk. I would do it, and then we would discuss it. And Moises would say, "Okay, you want to do it again?" And I'd say, "Uh-uh."
No,
by the end of it,
I'm good. He would say,
I'm good. I'll think about it. We'll do it again
your
later.
performance is so physical. Are you exhausted by the end of it, or are you adrenalized?
But I'm more tired at intermission than at the end of the play, interestingly.
Then you do your drugs.
And then I have my powder, and I'm back. But actually, that's really, I was thinking about this just last night, actually, as we were about to start the second act. I was like, gosh, I'm so tired. We're going to have got another mountain to climb. But that's actually where he is. So much time has passed between the first and the second act, or the second play and the third play, I should say. And so much has happened to him. He's lost his partner. His partner has died. He's adopted a son. He has grown up during intermission. So that weight, I feel like, is actually not that I'm physically tired. It's that, like, the first, and this is something that Harvey asked me in the first week. He said, "Have you felt yet how the plays inform one another?" And I said at the time, "No, not yet." But now I absolutely do. And they it's a guy who, when you first meet him, he's a kid. And by the end, he's a parent.
It's wonderful to see the growth in Arnold through the years. He's still Arnold, but he has the power at the end to stand up to his mother.
But because they're 3 plays and not 3 acts, which is why I would never take away the idea of it being a trilogy, that I took away the word trilogy because I didn't want people going, "What time is this going to end?"
That's right.
Or he
That's
gets
right.
the car. But in an act can start right after the act you last saw. But because they're plays, they have beginning, middles, and ends. And you do have to. The exhausting part for this child is he has to rev up to do the first one, and then with no intermission, all of a sudden has to rev up again and do the second one. And so he's already done that twice, and that's like, and here comes the next mountain, and this mountain he knows is going to be, the one that's going to kill him. And, so there is that if you're an actor. But all of this history, you walk on the stage with some, I wrote that. The first play you're done alone because they're very young. When you're young, it's all about you, right? It's just you. And then the second play, it's you and your friends. And I wrote it, Fugue in a Nursery. They're all in a giant bed together. The room that we actually called the nursery, the sign on the outside said, "Bring your own bottle." And it was, it was a nursery. We were all growing up. We were experimenting. We were having sex with one another. We were finding out who we were. And then the world crashes in, and reality crashes in, and that's the third play. That's Widows and Children First. And you can no longer deny your place in the world because stuff has happened to you. You're no longer, do you remember Quentin Crisp said in Naked Civil Servant that he had 2 friends over, a man and a woman, over for tea, and left them in the living room, went into the kitchen, made tea. When he came back, they were having sex on the couch, and he said it was when I realized at this moment I could no longer deny that I was in charge of the world. The life went on when I left the room, and it's like that's what happens to Arnold, and the stuff that's out of his control happens to him, and that's why that play looks realistic. But I wrote it in this sort of Neil Simon-y kind of funny way, but he walks on with this incredible weight on it. He's a man who's mourning and this weight, and yet he has to be funny and he has to.
As a community, we've made so much progress through the years. I'm speaking of LGBTs, but now under President Trump, a lot of these rights are being repealed one by one. Does that inflame, I'm asking the 3 of you, inflame you with a rage like Arnold's rage, that I'm gay, just deal with it, what is your problem? Why can't I have equal rights?
Yeah, you can't go back. You can't go backwards. I mean, it's the real war was won before we had our rights. The real war was won when the American Psychiatric Association, I think that's what they're called, when they took away the designation
Now, when
of
was
a
that
mental
about?
illness.
They did that.
It's in the
It was after Stonewall.
So, but it was
75, 73 or 75.
Yeah,
so your play was you were formulating your play then.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's when I always said, from now on, it's going to be skirmishes. I always felt like, they used to have those jokes about those poor Japanese soldiers that were out on some little island 20 years after World War II, and they were still waiting for the war to end. And I feel that way every time you see like an Anita Bryant or one of those people come out, you know, anti-gay, going, honey, the war is over.
You didn't get the memo?
Lost. You lost.
Yeah.
You lost. So we will have these skirmishes and we will go backwards and forwards, but you can't go back because young people have come along and they're not as scared of us. They know who we are. They're not frightened.
And your
of us.
play came around after Stonewall, which was the monumental modern landmark
Right.
of the gay movement, after gay was no longer a mental illness. And Arnold just has this frustration, why aren't I there yet?
Well, I think that watching the play, for so many people, and people who have come back to see the play now, who saw the original, said that they had my experience, which is that it opened a door. That all of a sudden it was put on a Broadway stage. It was the first time that a character like this was starting on a Broadway play. But what has always struck me the most is that sometimes a play comes along that doesn't only predict what's about to happen, but also helps us construct it. By putting those images on stage of not only an out gay man, but a loving relationship between men, and a hate crime, and an adoption of a child, and two men having a child and having a family unit. He not only predicted the next 30 years, but he helped us envision it. We could do it in part because we had seen it.
Did you know that's what you were doing, Harvey Fierstein?
No, because I didn't. I mean, you know, it's like I said about Catered Affair, you know, where one of the characters lives on the couch, his sister's couch, and when he's watching all this fighting, he starts realizing, I don't actually live on that's not my home. I'm on my sister's couch and needs to find his own life. And people say, well, that's a post-Stonewall character. And I said, no, weren't we all brought up in the same families? We all, my heterosexual brother and I had the same parents. We had the same, why shouldn't I want the same things? It struck me as strange. Thanks to the gallery players, the first gay people I knew were a gay couple that ran the theater that worked together for 35 years when I met them. I didn't know that gay people were unhappy until I took the subway to Manhattan. You know, I left Brooklyn, I went to Manhattan, I went, oh, we're supposed to be unhappy. Ooh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm kind of happy. So I didn't know that was not possible. I didn't, so it just seemed to me, why shouldn't I want those things? And then I ran into, you know, people. Then you ran into the third act.
I was kicking around the mama when you first did the play, and most everybody was a gay man, but they're wretchedly unhappy for it. Many
do you
of them.
remember? I mean, you were there. Do you remember when we opened Torch Song? You know this, the Village Voice. You were writing for the Soho News at that time. People like Edmund White. I mean, these gay leaders attacking me, saying, you know, he just wants us to be heterosexuals, and you know, we just want our rights to have all the sex we want. You know who? And it's like, no, the idea is freedom. Freedom means I get to say what I want my life to be. I fight for gay marriage, not that I ever wanted to get married, but if you have the right to it, a heterosexual has the right, then I should have the right to it. Doesn't mean I have to do it, but that's what freedom means.
It was almost a Stockholm Syndrome situation where a lot of gays, myself included, felt, oh, we're not going to be subversive and edgy if we have the same rights as heteros.
Right.
I was too blindsided to not realize that, of course, we should have the same rights.
Yeah, and when straight
even if you
people,
don't want them for yourself.
When straight people get married now, I have children, I go, oh, that's so gay.
We have 1 minute, Michael Musto.
Do you want to sing a
Do
song?
your Mercedes rule. No.
But you wanted to sing something.
That's our next
Moises supposes his toes are roses.
Yeah, that's what he wanted. That's what he wanted. It's an old Argentinian
song.
song.
Everyone knows it there.
Would you ever write a sequel to Torch Song Trilogy?
You know, I don't know. I've thought about it a lot.
Arnold would be in Sage, I guess.
You know, the guy that I had the relationship with, you know, the Ed character, he visited me rather recently, and
Did you rekindle?
he's a married man.
He was married in the play too, so what?
What is it? Separated but not divorced. You never know.
That way lies madness.
Yeah, there lies madness. You know, but it's very funny to think, you know, when he walks into the room, I have to deal with a certain reality, which is he's now 75. You know, my international stud is now way past being a senior citizen. You know, tell him about what showed up at your dressing room.
Oh, somebody. So in the first monologue in the first play, I talk about the guy the only guy that I really loved so far, up until that point, Charlie. He was everything you could want in an affair and more. Tall, handsome, rich, deaf. And someone sent me a photo of Charlie, of the real Charlie.
Sent him a picture of the real Charlie. He passed away in '91. You know where we lived? We lived over it's now NYU, but over the Fillmore East.
Oh, yes, of
Yeah.
course.
So Charlie and his two roommates, Sam, who was a dancer, who was a deaf dancer, because they couldn't hear the music downstairs. I was the only one who sat up all night. Charlie was real and lovely.
And handsome.
And
That's
handsome.
sweet.
And very tall.
I broke up his marriage. And he was a marriage
And he's now
counselor.
95 years
And he was-
old.
No, he's dead. Oh, marriage counselor.
Now, Torch Song is now at second stage until how long?
December 3rd.
December 3rd, and get over to see it, and this just should be seen over and over and go on and on. Thank you so much, Harvey Fierstein, Michael Urie, and Moises Kaufman. Please say hello to your wonderful mother for me, who I met at the show. All right, thank you so much for being here on Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Don't
Good night.
cry
Thank you,
for
Michael
me,
Musto.
Argentina.
People change. They change.
No, they don't.
Oh, well, you think it's so impossible? Believe me, one day you might meet a nice girl. Just saying, you never know. Look at your friend Ed.
He's separated.
Separated, not divorced.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Dinelli Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you